Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Terrence Crawford, Earl Spence, are they going to fight? Are they not going to fight? Is it going to be a 50-50 split, 60-40, 70-30? I think we need to really understand that 90-10 rule, because the question is this. Did Bud Crawford help his position at the table when negotiating this deal to fight Spence, right? Because in my opinion, I believe Earl Spence is keeping secrets, and I think he and Crawford may somehow finagle a way for them to get into that ring between April and June of next year. I'm telling you, something just... I was watching the way Spence was moving. Now, maybe he's going to fight Keith Thurman, but I don't know. But if it's Terrence Crawford, you got to think, did Terrence Crawford hurt himself or help himself by going out here and fighting on BLK Prime? Because the pay-per-view numbers were 15,000. That's been consistent across every website and even these different YouTube channels, right? Even out there on Twitter. It's pretty consistent. The 15,000, that was the overall in sales. And that's extremely low. It's a little bit more than what some people had anticipated the event would sell. But those are still very low numbers. Now, so that one thing, as I would say, is probably factual. There's only 15,000 in pay-per-view sales. Now, anything outside of that, when you hear Crawford saying he made 10 million, someone saying, oh no, he made 15, someone saying, no, he barely made 600,000, someone said he only made $1 million, someone else said Crawford made 3 million. Look, I'm not here to tell you how much he made, because I don't know. These other guys who are reporting that he made X, Y, and Z, they don't know. You know who knows? BLK Prime, Crawford, and that fly on the wall. Okay? As far as the Venetian, right? The word was he received his money like a month before the fight. That's unheard of. But it wasn't. They didn't expound to say the money was put in an escrow account. They just said he received his money. He's happy. He's got his money. Okay, I know they need to show proof of funds, so maybe that's what they meant, but it didn't expound. They didn't really articulate that very well. It was just something they just kind of shotgun blasted out and left it to us to interpret, and that's where guys kind of take it, twist it the way they want, create their own narrative. But bottom line, supposedly Venetian received his money a month before the fight. Also, Terrence Crawford supposedly received $5 million, half of the $10 million purse, a few weeks before the fight, and was supposed to receive the other half, $5 million, the week of the fight. Doesn't really make much sense. Under the Nebraska Boxing Commission, fighters aren't allowed to get paid until after the fight. So something doesn't sound right there. It wasn't very clear, saying there was $5 million put in an escrow account, the other $5 million we put in the week of. That's a little different than someone saying putting the money in your bank account or cutting you a check. Okay? Now, I've done videos on this already about friends I've had who are professional boxers, and they all told me the day of the fight, when you're in that locker room, you get a check, right? After the fight, they put a check in your hand. If you have an opponent who no-shows, you still get paid. It's a check. Now I have several friends who fought professionally. That's what they all told me, okay? And then even when I saw Floyd Mayweather at the end of a fight, remember he was flashing the check with, I think, $100 million check. So I tend to believe that fighters don't get paid before the fight. They get paid after the fight. Or maybe they may get the check put in somebody's hands right before the fight starts. But it's not, you're not getting nothing a week prior. You're not getting nothing a month out. Maybe there's a showing a proof of funds. But this isn't me just going assuming. I'm talking about friends who fought professionally. I have one friend in particular. I have a couple, but one in particular used to spar with Andy Ruiz. He's from Africa. Trained the Nigerian Olympic team. He boxed in the Olympics for Nigeria. He's the real deal. Also, David Izon, crazy. He's wild, but told me the same thing. So when you look at Terrence Crawford, I think that's hurt him because a lot of people just don't. There's just too many holes in the story. Now, as far as Terrence Crawford making $10 million, right? Look, let's not go off of what I say, because I'm telling you, I don't know. But if you ask me what just based on what little bit of evidence I've come across, I'm not talking about anyone's YouTube channels. I'm not going to call out anyone's names on here and all that. I'm going to tell you, well, when I go and look on the different websites, right, I come across this, okay? And it talks about Crawford making the $1 million. It's supposed to be 70% of the pay-per-view shares. Total payout could be around $2.5 million, right? Now, in the Vanessa is $300,000, 30% of pay-per-view shares, around $600K, including the pay-per-view sales. So the thing about this, let's forget the total payout, okay? Because that doesn't really matter. Let's look at the guaranteed purse here, okay? Now, if you guys want to know, man, where are you getting that from? Well, I'll just show you. Let me scroll up here for you. You can go ahead and look at it yourself. From right here, totalsports.com, okay? So you guys go on up there and you guys look at the stuff yourself. But if Crawford is reportedly making a $1 million and $1 million guarantee, where the hell is he getting $10 million from? Okay? So this is what concerns me. All right? So in the previous fight, it talks about Crawford making $6 million, with Porter making $4 million, right? And then it goes on and says here, Crawford will earn a guarantee of $1 million from the fight, and then the 70% pay-per-view shares like we just covered. Now, that's a little odd, man. So, and then it talks about the gateway income and pay-per-view shares generated from the fight. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, but it says since the fight will be held, out there at the Shy Health Center. Now, we know over 18,000 people went to the event, and that's excellent. It says here, the fight between these two might generate $5 million to $6 million from ticket sales revenue. So let's just say they made the $6 million, okay, from ticket sales. Okay, still a $4 million difference. The fight will be available on, pay-per-view. We already know that. So this is the thing. We know the fight was $40, but when you look down here, gateway income and pay-per-view revenue. Now, the pay-per-view revenue, it says $35 million if pay-per-view sales exceed 330,000 in the U.S. and the U.K. We know that it didn't get anywhere close to that. So the pay-per-view revenue, I think it was, 400,000 or something crazy like that, man. It didn't even break 500,000. So when you look at that, it just makes me wonder how people are saying, or how Crawford is saying he made $10 million. How these other people are reporting all these weird numbers. Now, for this website, I read through there. I have to question the way it's written. Now, I'm definitely not trying to speak negatively of the article, but when I read it, it almost sounded like somebody who, or maybe English was like maybe their second or third language. Just a lot of the grammatical errors and the incomplete sentences in the article. But nevertheless, it's still an article, and I think it's a source that can be cited when having a discussion about Terrence Crawford and his numbers. So when you hear guys saying, oh, he made $1 million, he made $2 million, I personally think they got it from this website. I don't think 90% of the guys who do videos on boxers know these guys personally. 10% of them do. Okay, let's just be real. You know, you could tell that there's a rapport been established, and I'm talking about the really big boxing platforms. They know all these guys, and there's a certain respect they have. But I'm not sure if these boxers are comfortable with disclosing how much money they're actually making. So, back on Terrence Crawford. Let's say Crawford, if he made $10 million, I think Crawford's in an excellent position. Not necessarily going into a fight with Earl Spence to have that fight on PBC. You see, that's where we're going to run into a problem. Okay? Now, I'm gonna expound on that here in a second. But now, if the fight's held on BLK Prime, saying Crawford really got the $10 million, then that tells me somehow, somewhere, BLK Prime, for some reason, is comfortable with putting big money behind Terrence Crawford. And my thing is, I'm getting an incomplete picture here. If an outfit like BLK Prime is going to pay a guy like Crawford $10 million, right? And then just from the data that's right here and accessible, if I sit here and I do the analysis, I see a big red flag. And if I see that, my thing is, why doesn't BLK Prime see that? So that's why I said this is inconclusive. There's just not enough information for me to sit here and say why they would go forward. But let's just say we had all the numbers, all the information, everything said, boom, Crawford made $10 million. No doubt, all the numbers lined up, pay-per-view sale. Let's just say in a perfect world, that's what happened, which we know it didn't, right? But let's just say it did. So then for Crawford going forward, why would he want to go and try to fight Spence on Showtime or do it through PBC or anything other than BLK Prime when he knows there's real money there and these guys are willing to put real money behind him? Okay? Crawford's not, I don't think he's just going to want to jump ship and go over there. And this is the second part of the conversation, and be treated like second hand. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is the other side of the argument. A lot of people are talking about, when it comes to Crawford and Spence, why that fight didn't take place. Now this is something we got to be careful with. They've been talking for years about fighting. You guys know that. I'm not getting into that. Over the last year, there were a lot of talks about them. The negotiation began. Within the last year, the negotiation began. There was talks trying to sort things out. Okay? But this is where I think we're at with that. Crawford, some people are saying they feel like, well, hey, Crawford wasn't treated with the right respect. They've always felt like that Spence and Heyman, PBC, Showtime is more like Crawford needs us. We're doing him a favor. And Crawford just grew tired of not being taken seriously. And he decided to take care of himself and go out here and get a fight. People are saying they feel like Crawford doesn't owe anything to Spence. Spence is out here feeling sorry for himself and wants people to believe him that he was done so wrong by Crawford. And that Crawford had every right to go out there and take this $10 million fight. And he had no obligation to disclose anything to those guys because they weren't taking him serious. They were basically just trying to humiliate him. And as a result, he gave them a taste of their own medicine. Now, many of you will probably agree with that. But I will say this. When you carry, first, you miss out on all opportunities, right? If you continue to dwell in the past, right? All future opportunities if you're dwelling in the past. That's why it's important to not have, I'm not saying let nobody mistreat you, right? No, we don't do that. But if you're holding a hot coal in your hand, That's what all that anger is, that frustration is, that disappointment is. And you're watching this person and you're holding that hot coal and you're ready to throw it at them, right? But you're just waiting for the right opportunity. But the whole time you're holding this hot coal in your hand, ready to throw it, but you're burning the shit out your hand. And if that is how Crawford approached it, I'm not saying that's how he approached it. I'm saying there are a lot of people who feel that way. If so, he burnt his hand. It could have possibly affected future dealings and future negotiations with Earl Spence. Now, if it's the latter, where Crawford and Spence were there negotiating, Al Heyman, Showtime guys, behind the scenes, working feverishly. Crawford's out on his own, hot winging it, okay? Talking about hedge funds. He's at the table. He's the boss. Spence is no boss. But you got an inexperienced boss at the table trying to lead negotiations with experienced bosses. You can get in over your head. Now, Crawford had lawyers. Sure, he had people there. Vested interest in Crawford. Want to make sure he crossing T's, dotting I's. Everything's happening. Is legit, professional approach. No hang-ups. No surprises down the road. And then if that's the case, where everything was just, all the cards were on the table by PBC, and Crawford was just like, okay, I'm going to work a deal here with these guys, but I'm going to sit here and keep, I'm talking to these BLK Prime guys. I don't need to let them know what, maybe a $10 million fight. This guy's no threat. Let me just forget it. I'm just going to walk away from this table because I'm not really sure. I know they're working on it, but it's not happening as fast as I want. I'm going to go take this easy money. And I'm just not going to say nothing to them. Now, that, some people think it's not wrong. I personally think if that's happened, I'm not saying it did, because at this point, I'm going to tell you, I have no idea. Man, this stuff is so muddled, right? From so many rumors and guys posting stuff and different things, right? That it's all confusing now. But I play devil's advocate, right? But let's say Spence and Al Heyman treated him right. But Crawford just decided to go get that easy money, like Spence said, instead of just being transparent, saying, look, I want the fight. Let me get this easy money, $10 million. Contingent on winning that fight. We can have ours, February, March, whatever. If Crawford just jumped ship and went after the easy money, left him in the win, that's wrong. That's wrong, right? He can do what he wants, but in my opinion, that's a foul. Now, that's the two sides of the argument. Spence and those guys didn't treat him with respect. Crawford's like, all right, you're not going to take me serious? I'm gonna take care of me because I can't depend on y'all. Now, if it's the fact that Spence and those guys were treating him with respect and really trying to work the deal, and Crawford just, did a little dirty business and took care of himself and left him out in the cold, well, going forward, how do you think negotiations are going to fare, people? Right? There's been nothing but finger pointing. This shit is like two kids at the playgrounds. So-and-so took my ball. I didn't take your ball. You gave me your ball. No, you took it. That's what's happening here. Finger pointing. Someone took my ball. Or no, you gave me the ball. And that's what's going on right here. So for these guys to come and play together again, it's just not going to be that easy. All right? Someone else put a comment. This is the thing. I welcome all comments. We don't have to agree, right, on my page. I think confrontation can be constructive. Unless, you start a lot of profanity, stuff like that. I'm not for that. I'll delete your comments. And if you're real foul, I'm going to report your ass. Like, we're not, that's just corny to me. But we don't have to agree. We can be a little bit heated, but when people start talking real reckless, that's corny to me. But what else is even more corny is when people come out here and speak their own facts. You're entitled to your own opinion, not your own fact. Someone posted, Crawford has a mandatory in June. I'm like, who? Yo, man, crickets. Don't come out here saying Crawford has a mandatory in June. Who the hell is Crawford's mandatory? That's my thing. I get it. I just recently did a video about this. I get it, man. Guys who are ranked number 1 in these different sanctioning bodies, that doesn't make them the mandatory. All right? But who the hell is Crawford's mandatory? That's my thing. Right? When you look at what's going on across the landscape of the welterweight division, with all the different moves that are happening with these sanctioning bodies, I do believe something's going to pop up. I've been saying that. And as far as who's going to become his mandatory, yep, we just went through the list of welterweights. I'm not going to pull that screen back up. We just went through it. If he's going to get hit with a mandatory, Crawford, I'm telling you, man, it's going to probably be boots in us. But I don't know that. I haven't heard that. And if you see somebody report that, it's probably not true. Now, if they said more than likely, then that's a fair discussion. But don't post stuff on here saying Crawford can't fight Spence between April, May, and June because Crawford has to fight a mandatory. All right. One thing we know, and for the genius who posted that, right, when it comes to 2 champions coming together to unify for the undisputed distinction, that overrides mandatories, man. Okay, unless you force a purse bid or something like that. Now, if negotiations are taking place, then you can do like what Eddie Hearn's trying to do right now to Tyson Fury and Usyk with Hrgovic, man. If force goes straight to purse bid, and that kills all negotiations for a unified fight or undisputed bout. But that's not what's happening here. Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen April, May, and June. But what I will say is, out of everything I've heard from Terrence Crawford in regards to Spence, and Spence in regard to Crawford, out of everything I've heard, the one thing they've said that is synonymous with each other is they both plan on fighting either April, May, or June. They said that. They didn't say they're going to fight each other. They just said that's when they're looking to return to the ring. And the fact that Spence said that last night, I said, okay, there's something going on. Something's up. I do believe they're going to make this fight happen. But I will say this. Why in the world would Spence give Crawford that kind of advantage? To be out the ring, a year? Almost a year. Why do that? Crawford just got in there and he had some much needed. I mean, he had some heavy ring rust on him. So it was a much needed fight for him to get that off him. And that ring rust was clinging to him like barnacles, man. And it took him 6 rounds to really pry those barnacles off, lighten up the weight load, and do his job and get that guy out the ring. Okay, so going forward, when you talk about this purse split, how in the world are they gonna come up with who's gonna get what now? It's crazy. These guys talking about fighting on BLK Prime, Crawford and AB saying it can happen. Earl Spence shot that down. He's loyal to Al Heyman. He's gonna be there until it's over. He is not gonna go over to BLK Prime or any other platform. He's gonna stay with Al Heyman, and that's it. Simple. So that's a huge problem. Okay, that's a huge roadblock. Okay, and that's not me making that up. That's a huge roadblock. But I don't know. I guess we'll see, man. Very frustrating. And for those of you who are saying, man, why are we still talking about this, man? Look, man, boxing it's called prize fighting, isn't it? Fighting for a prize. But I'll ask you this. Who out there thinks Crawford and Spence should be, at least as of right now, forget what a couple months ago, today, right? Thinks that shit should be a 50-50 split on the purse, on pay-per-view numbers, on tickets, on everything. Who thinks that? I mean, let's be real, right? Because I've always said I think the fight is 50-50. The fight. I'm not talking about who deserves what portion of the salary of the fight purse. I'm talking about the fight. I think it's just whoever going to implement the game plan the best, because they both are amazing fighters. But I've always said I was edging more to Crawford because he fights with his eyes. But after watching his performance against Evanesian, I still think it's a 50-50 fight, but I don't know, man. I'm not leaning towards anyone. Like, I'm no longer saying I think Crawford wins because of his eyes. Because I just didn't like the way he looked. Something, and you can say, he starts off slow. I know that. I don't need anybody trying to check and balance me on no damn Crawford. I know what Crawford's all about. Crawford's amazing. But he ain't looked that amazing to me in that fight. The way he finished the fight, perfect, man. But getting there, not so good. And it's not anything that Evanesian was doing that was great. Yeah, he's putting some pressure on him, but you can't tell me coming out of that fight that you really feel that Crawford's going to get in there and do a number on Spence. Not with Spence's work rate, not with his power. He's much bigger. Just got to be real. You just got to be real, man. I just think it's a 50-50 fight, and I want to see it. But as far as the purse split, look, man, you got to take so many things into consideration, man. I just don't see, like 70-30, man, supposedly Crawford had signed to fight Earl Spence at 70-30. Now, I've always said 70-30 was fair because I talk about the belts and belts being leverage. But then I said 60-40 is the sweet spot. There's some people who said, nope, Crawford deserves 50-50. Some people felt Crawford deserved 60-40 over Spence because they look at what he did, 130, 135, 140. You know what I'm saying? Or 135, 140, 147. They look at all that. But I'm not sure. I don't think I agree with that. I still think those belts matter. That's leverage. What Crawford did, 35, 40, that's commendable. And we need to look at that. But that only carries so much weight going into a fight. Now, as far as the Hall of Fame, that's different. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about going to a fight for negotiations. And based on his performance against Evanesian and the pay-per-view numbers and everything else, although it's a new platform, it's going to take a while for it to grow. I just think if that's 70-30, he's lucky to get 90-10 now, man. So I think they need to understand the 90-10 rule. But that's just my opinion. But best case scenario, keep that same energy with the 70-30. Just get the fight made. But for those of you out there, if you know something when it comes to the fight purse, when it comes to negotiations, something definitive, not something that you think, right? No, it's something definitive. I know the story on Crawford and Spence, all that crap. I get it. I get it, man. I watch everything just like you are, probably more. I get it. But I'm telling you right now, even though with all the information I have, I can't come here and tell you what Crawford made. I can't tell you anything. None of us can say what the hell happened between him and Spence and Al Heyman and all that. Just they know and the fly on the wall knows. But if you ask me who I believe, I think there's some truth in what both of them are saying. I do. And a lot of times when you're sitting here and you're starting to talk about things that, happened in the past and you get a camera put in front of your face, there's some things you're going to leave out. Probably inadvertently, but it gets left out. And that's what I think happens when these guys sit down and get in front of the camera. I just think there's some things that when they look back at it, like, man, I should have said this, I should have said that. We all do it. But the thing with Crawford that's really, I think making it hard for a lot of fans to want to just really get behind and support him is it's just so many questions about the things that he said. And I'll tell you, I will say this. I personally think, I'll say this. Crawford can do what he wants. He's a big man. He's independent. I understand. No one's going to sit here, man, and strong arm me one way or the other. I get it. Crawford has an ego. Spence has an ego. Crawford has a family. Spence has a family. Crawford's going to sit here and say, nah, I just went through this shit with Top Rank. not really having a voice, kind of having to take whatever they give me. He's not going through that. And I'm telling you, if he felt that way, we're talking with Al Heyman and the guys at PBC and Showtime, I'm telling you, that left a sour taste in his mouth. And he had every right to go on and take a fight on the BLK Prime platform against a Vanessian. The thing is, you still have to be professional, man, and respect the positions. You just can't sit there and disrespect the position of an Al Heyman, Espinoza, Showtime, and even Spence, who has 3 belts. Okay? You just can't disrespect the positions and go off and do what you want and not close the loop and say, hey, this is what's going on. You gotta have a conversation. Now, I'm not sure. No, I know for a fact that didn't happen. Crawford said that shit didn't happen. He just bounced. Did what he had to do. The one thing he did say is he told them that he was going to fight this year. See, that's all he said. He said, I told him I wanted to fight this year. I wanted to fight this year. That's all he said. He didn't say he came back and told him that, hey, I'm going to go fight this guy. He just told him he wanted to fight this year. And then he went out and did what he had to do. So, he blindsided him. Okay, even though he said it, it is what it is, man. That's like you telling me, that's like my wife, if she was to tell me, hey, we need bread when you go to the grocery store in 2 weeks. And then I go to the grocery store in 2 weeks and I forget to buy bread. And you come and say, well, I told you 2 weeks ago that we needed bread. It's like, woman, hell you going to let me think with everything I have going on, man, in my life. I go to the store, and you know I'm going to the store, and you don't even say nothing, man. You just leave me there in the wind when I have this budget. It's crazy, man. Could have just told me, hey, get the bread. This guy Crawford could have just said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take this fight. Remember, I told you I'm going to fight this year. But it is what it is, man. Everybody has an opinion, but nobody has any real facts. And that's the thing. And that's what makes these conversations about Crawford and Spence, pretty fun, man, especially when you're reading through the comments and people going back and forth. One thing I'll say is everyone's just sharing opinions. No one has any damn facts. And when guys are here trying to, chirp me up and tell me, oh, well, this X, Y, and Z. That's your opinion, Jim. We're just parrots out here. That's all we are. We're parroting what we're hearing, what we're reading. Oh, this said this. We come and we repeat it. So with me, I'm giving my perspective. And what I'm telling you is I have no idea. But for those of you who, let's say some of these websites are legit, these aren't my words, right? This is what was supposedly the guarantee for Crawford and Vanessian, and what the pay-per-view split was supposed to be. Okay? Now that's posted out there. A lot of guys are taking that information, running with it. Other guys are creating their own narratives. But for me, that's the real deal. When it comes to Crawford, when it comes to Spence going back, renegotiating, 70-30 to me is now definitely the sweet spot. But hey, that 90-10 rule may come into play, and that's definitely going to prevent the fight from taking place. Also, the 2 different platforms, that's going to prevent the fight from taking place. In addition to that, these mandatories that I know are going to, I'm telling you, in the next 30 to 60 days, there are going to be mandatories that get put on these guys. The discussion's already there. I'm telling you. And don't be surprised if Boots ends up being a mandatory to Crawford, and the winner of Stan Eunice and Virgil Ortiz ends up being a mandatory to Earl Spence. And that's why I just would wish Earl Spence would get in the ring and fight. Well, I know he had his accident, so you got to get himself together, but I don't know what Spence is going to do. But I'm just me, and just from watching boxing for so long and understanding how some of this stuff works, which I definitely don't know everything, man. But I'm like 90% sure they're going to make Boots the mandatory to Terrence Crawford. I'm like 90% sure. I don't think they're going to make him the mandatory to Earl Spence. And I really think they're going to make the winner, Stan Eunice and Virgil Ortiz, the mandatory to Earl Spence. Crawford, Boots, those winners for that WBA regular title are going to be going against, what's his name, Spence. Now, as far as Keith Thurman, to be honest with you, it seems like he's not getting any love, but he's out there training. But who knows what's going to happen. Spence did say something I don't know if y'all caught it when they were interviewing him yesterday, and he said he'll never say he's not going to fight somebody, which we know that he has said he'll never fight Thurman. So I heard that when he said that too. I was like, okay, maybe that's his way of trying to kind of recant his statements before, because, it's being forced on him and he has to fight him. But I don't know. With that being said, y'all keep cool. Leave your comments below. And the reason I did this video is because, man, it's just prize fighting. The numbers matter. The monies matter. We all want to see the fight. But if what Crawford did here with Evanescence, that's a flop. Okay? And we don't know what Crawford made. Okay? No one knows. Only Crawford, BLK Prime, that fly on the wall. But I tell you what, if he really only got a guarantee of $1 million, Crawford he didn't make nowhere close to $5 million. And he can't come and decide to go into negotiation with Earl Spence and expect to still get that same sweet deal. I just don't see it. But that being said, man, y'all leave your comments below and let me know what you think. I think both these guys are great fighters. The water's been muddied so bad with rumors and, finger pointing and, just bullshit, man, to where I really don't know what the deal is. But that being said, y'all keep cool in the breeze.